For those who don't know me, my name's Wayne Senville, and I'm coordinator of the Ohavi Zedek Lunch and Learn series this year. First of all, we're circulating a basket. It should be somewhere for contributions to cover the food costs. So we're suggesting $10 or whatever you'd like to be able to contribute. Also, just as a reminder, it's helpful if folks register for sessions in advance to give us a good count on how many people, how many meals we're going to need to prepare. So for the next Lunch and Learn, if you can go to the Ohavi Zedek website under Lunch and Learn, it's a segment of adult education, and there's a registration form there. You can even pay in advance if you want to, or contribute in advance if you'd like to. Also, I'm really pleased to announce that our sponsors of today's talk, Rebecca Sherlock and Mike Strauss, are with us, which is good to see. So thank you very much for contributing. And also thanks are due to everyone who helped prepare the lunch for today, which as usual is excellent. So thanks to the lunch crew. Also, just a note I left for myself for people to silence their cell phones if you haven't yet done that. So our speaker today is Alan Rubel. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
Either way, it's fine.
Either way.
Pronounce it one way, another way.
Okay. So there will be time for questions at the end of his talk. Alan is also going to be staying with us after the event ends. He has a table right over there with books that are for sale, which are going to be sort of the focal point of his talk today. The book, you'll see The Greatest Burden, the Greatest Blessing, Caregiving Stories of Hope, Humility, and Love, is really, I've gone through it. It's a powerful collection of 43 stories about the reality of being an unpaid caregiver. It provides candid, moving, and often inspirational accounts of the challenges caregivers face and deal with when trying to offer support and love to the individuals they are caring for. As Alan has noted, and I'll quote him, "We have tried to cover stories of many areas of caregiving, from cancer, addiction, and so many more. Our mission is to help today's and tomorrow's caregivers through these stories." It's really a book worth reading through. Let me just, before turning it over to Alan, let me just say a few words about him. Alan grew up in Barrie. He loved boxing as a teenager, but spent a lot of time not far from here at Greenblatt's Grocery on Archibald Street, which maybe some of you were familiar with. Alan was active in the Barrie community. He served as a school board member there and as an alderman on the Barrie City Council. He's a former board member of Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice. He's a past president of Beth Jacob Synagogue, and he's current co-chair of Ohavi Zedek Cemetery Committee. Finally, Alan is a competitive senior games javelin thrower, and he is a founding member of the Vermont Sports Hall of Fame, which perhaps would offer a good topic for a future Lunch and Learn also. So it's our privilege to have Alan with us today as our Lunch and Learn speaker.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you. I just want to comb my hair first, since this is going to be broadcast here. First of all, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity and privilege to share with you. I want to tell you a quick story, though. A number of years ago in the 1970s, I was asked to speak at a Lions Club meeting in Barrie at the Country House. And when I walked in, the owner of the Country House, Mario Lorenzini, came up to me and he said, "Alan, I'm so embarrassed." He said, "We're serving ham today." And he said, "I'll get you something else." And I said, "It's okay, I'll eat around it, don't worry about it." He said, No, I insist. So he calls the waitress over and he says, "Alan is Jewish, he doesn't eat ham." So she said, "No problem." So they went in the kitchen and brought me pork. True story. You know, that story has nothing to do with caregiving, but I thought it was funny. Our book, The Greatest Burden, The Greatest Blessing. This book is, as Wayne said, about 43 stories of caregivers from we tried to cover almost every area. But I want to talk about the reason why I started this. My other half, Sharon, my better half, she died 6 years ago. And her and I started this book together when she first got ill. And they found in Barrie at a regular just doctor's meeting, they did at the Central Vermont Medical Center, they did a scan and found 20 tumors in her liver. And they didn't want to do a biopsy because they weren't sure exactly if it was what was going on. They wanted us to do a second opinion. So we chose Boston Brigham in Boston to do the second opinion. And they agreed with the Central Vermont finding that they felt that they just wanted to watch this for a while to see if there's any growth in these tumors. But they wanted her to go back every few months to do scans just to see if there's any changes. And Sharon absolutely looked great. She felt great. She looked great. There was absolutely no symptoms of any disease. Well, about 3-4 months into these, maybe 5 months into the series of doing the scans, these tumors started to change. So they wanted us to do a biopsy, and they felt that it was time. So Boston Brigham was involved with Dana-Farber. Dana-Farber did a biopsy, and because she felt good, she looked good, everything was normal to us, we didn't really expect anything. And one of my kids, I have 5 children and 14 grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. So, but at this time, that does deserve a clap, I'll tell you. But at that time, one of my sons, Robert, decided to come with us, and we didn't expect anything. We went to Dana-Farber, and I am not exaggerating with this. The doctor, within a few comments, said, "We have some not good news. You have liver cancer. You have anywhere from 3 to 6 months to live." Now, here's this woman that looks beautiful. She looks great. She has no symptoms. And we're looking at each other saying, first of all, I can't believe he just came right out and said that. And he wanted us to start chemo treatments at Dartmouth because it was closer than Boston. And we looked at each other and walked out of there in shock. And we decided, which I strongly recommend, you always do a second opinion. Never take, and if you have to, a third opinion. We knew that this wasn't right. We just knew it because normally someone with cancer does not have, has some sort of symptoms or looks bad or we did a second opinion at Mass General in Boston. And within a week, we found out that she did not have liver cancer, but she did have cancer. And that it was a rare cancer called neuroendocrine cancer, which ended up in her liver, and there was probably a primary somewhere, but most people that have this, what shows up is a secondary tumor. Well, what we did was, the doctor's name was Dr. B, Dr. Bliskowski. He made a decision that he didn't want to do anything at this point. He wanted to see the progress of where she was going with us. And after about 6 months, we ended up doing every 3 weeks doing scans. And now I spent, and Sharon spent, every 3 weeks for 13 years going from Barrie, Vermont to Mass General. And after a period of time, she started getting a series of shots that were to help her with the growth of these tumors. And over the period of 13 years that she lived, the first 6 years, it was really good. She didn't have that bad symptoms, but then they started. And when they started, she became very ill. And I remember one time sitting in the waiting room waiting for her to come out of an operation. There was a guy beside me. His name was Mike Tenalia. Mike Tenalia was waiting for his wife to come out of an operation, and the two of us started talking. He was the vice president of the Clinton Bank in Watertown, Massachusetts. And we became, sometimes you meet people and you instantaneously become really good friends. So what happened was we started talking, and all of a sudden both women came out of, his wife Linda and Sharon came out of the operations at the same time. So we went into a very large recovery room, and both women were lying next to each other, talking to each other. Now, what's the chances of that happening? Well, that started a relationship with the Tenalias and the Rubels. And Sharon and I started this book, The Greatest Burden, The Greatest Blessing, because we noticed, even though she was the patient and I was the caregiver, what a lot of people were going through. And I asked Mike, I said, Mike, will you join me in this book? And he said, I'd love to. I think that's a great idea. We can, I know what we're going through. See, him and I used each other to help each other through this thing. His wife didn't have the same cancer, but she had thyroid cancer, but he still went through the same things that I did. Linda died this last summer, and without exaggerating, the relationship that Mike and I built, we talked to each other almost every day. Me supporting him supporting me when Sharon died, and the blessing that the two of us found was the blessing of him and I and the Tenalias and the Rubels. Along the way, we decided that we gathered quite a few stories between the two of us, but there was things that were missing, and we knew it. And one of my other friends, his name is Mark Resnick, wrote a book called 10 Days with Dad. He took care of his father. Mark and I are in the same business, but different companies. But Mark and I called him and I told him the vision that Mike and I had and Sharon had about this book. And he said, I want to do it. So the three of us started on a mission to write this book and gather caregivers from all over the US and Canada. And there's 43 stories in the book. So, and Mark and Mike both have stories in here along with me. So there's 3 stories in here talking about their experiences on caregiving. I want to go over something that you're probably going to say, why is boxing? They mentioned that a number of years ago, boxing became a big part of my life. Growing up, I had my bar mitzvah in Barre, Vermont at Howard Johnson's restaurant, okay? And the guy that owned Howard Johnson's restaurant, his name was Firpo Saldi. Firpo, not only, he came to Barre with his young family in the 20s, 30s, and in order to make a living, he started boxing. There was no amateur boxing back in the day of, people earned money, not much money, but to support their families. He became the welterweight and lightweight New England boxing champion. And not only that, he fought at the Barre Opera House. Ever heard of Benny Leonard? Benny Leonard was probably the greatest Jewish boxer that ever lived. But he fought him at the Barre Opera House on Benny Leonard's comeback. In fact, I got a book here. It's called When Boxing Was Jewish. All right? And at that time, it's really funny because you could tell there was a time when all the boxers were Italian, all the boxers were Jewish, there was periods of time in history that's how they judged, people, immigrants coming over. That's how they started, especially in the Vermont, Barre, Burlington. With that, Firpo taught me, my dad and mom were the salt of the earth. I loved them so much, but they never were involved. They were working all the time. FERPA was an idol to me. He was someone I could go to. And he got me boxing. Actually, I fought in the Vermont Golden Gloves in 1965. Now picture this. Picture someone really in shape with hair. Okay. And I fought in the gloves. And along with that experience, I developed a lot of friends that were boxers. And it really, the book has a lot of touches about boxing in here and sports, because a lot of the people that are in this book have a background that has to do with boxing and sports. Well, from the gloves, I developed a relationship. His name was Ernie Farrar. Ernie was the executive director of the Vermont Golden Gloves, the Ernie and Charlie show. And Ernie and I, if I got it here, we wrote a book together called Gloves. It's about boxers, trainers, and personalities from Vermont. So we built this relationship, and that's basically how I got involved in boxing. Well, this is how the book actually gets involved with boxing. Because through Mark Resnick's relationship, he met a guy by the name of Brett Miller. Brett Miller wrote one of the forwards to the book. Brett Miller started, it's called 110 Gym. What does 110 Gym do? 110 Gym works with people with neurological diseases and teaches them how to box. Not how to actually fight each other, but teaches them the movements of boxing to help them, especially with Parkinson's. Well, Brett Miller led us to, ever heard of Muhammad Ali? How many people here have heard of Muhammad Ali? Well, Muhammad Ali, his daughter Rashida, took care of Muhammad when he had Parkinson's. And she wrote the other foreword to the book. Okay. Along the way, I was in Boston waiting for Sharon to come out of an operation again. And I picked up the Boston Globe, and there was a story about a guy by the name of Bob Halloran. Bob is a sportscaster. He was with Nesson. He was on TV there. Bob Halloran, his wife Eileen, I called him one day and I said, Bob, you don't know me. My name is Alan Rubel. I wrote a book on boxing called Gloves. And let's meet, because you wrote a book, from what I understand, called Irish Thunder, about the Mickey Ward story. Mickey Ward was a phenomenal boxer, and you might have heard of the movie called The Fighter, which is an Academy Award-winning movie. Well, Bob was active in putting that movie together. So we met for coffee. How does this relate to the book? Because about 6 or 7 years ago, Bob had an aneurysm, and his wife, Eileen, had to take care of him. So she's one of the stories in the book. So there's been many stories that have been related to my initial boxing when I fought in 1965, where certain people have come into my life. There's another story in here, and I don't know how many of you people know about Bob Cousy. Ever heard of Bob Cousy? Now we hear about all the star basketball. Bob Cousy, in my time, was probably one of the greatest basketball players of my time. Every kid wanted to emulate Bob Cousy. Well, I worked for him for 4 years at a camp called Greylag, and Bob's wife, Missy, was just an amazing woman. Well, his story is in the book because he ended up taking care of her when she had Alzheimer's. And this is one of the only stories we have in here that have not been written by the caregiver or by us. This story was written by, the only story is written by a newspaper, but we had permission to use this story. Missy ended up with Alzheimer's, and Bob is an amazing man. He was a type of man that was very organized, and he dedicated his life. This was in his 80s. He's now 93. He dedicated his life to helping her while she was alive. And what he did was made her life where everything was organized, where she used to love to plant in her garden. He'd have fake flowers in the garden to think that she did it. They went to Florida when she could. He would bring her car down to park it in the driveway to make sure that she would think that she's still doing the things that she wanted to do. He read a newspaper. It took hours in the morning that he would sit with her. He'd have the refrigerator with all her things in there. He kept her at home. This was a powerful, all these stories from Bob Halloran or Bob Cousy or Mike or Mark and I, there's all in the book. And there's 43 other stories. I do want to talk about one other story that's in here that is pretty powerful. Have you ever heard about, a book is written on them actually. It's called, bear with me, 11 Seconds, okay? 11 Seconds. It's the Travis Roy story. Anybody heard of Travis Roy? Travis Roy is one of the most inspirational people that I've ever met. His parents, Lee and Brenda, are really good friends of mine. And Travis Roy's dream in life was to play hockey. And he had his life all set up. He wanted to play hockey for Boston College. He wanted to play hockey in the Olympics. And he wanted to play hockey in the pros. He made his first dream. 11 seconds onto the ice. He was checked into the boards and paralyzed for life. But what he did was, this story, Lee and Brenda talks about their caregiving of him in this book. But what Travis Roy did was, after a period of time, he was fortunate because they had to help him. A lot of people don't. But what Travis Roy said, I'm going to do something even though I am paralyzed. I'm going to help other people that are in my situation. He died about 3-4 years ago. And what he did was he raised $26 million to help other people that were paralyzed. Here in Burlington, in Essex actually, they have Little Fenway, Little Field of Dreams, Little Wrigley. And unfortunately, I hear that now it's no longer in the Travis Roy Foundation. Now it's under diabetes, but unfortunately they're building another field called Little Yankee Stadium, but we won't talk about that. But what Travis did was just from this ball tournament that they had, every year they'd have this tournament, raised $1 million a year. He would have us go around the country speaking, and that's one of the stories in the book. Our goal is to help the 65 million unpaid caregivers in the world today and growing. What we decided to do was create this book, and we sell them. We sell them through ourselves. We sell them through Amazon. We sell them in bookstores. But we go to large companies, and we ask them to buy the books. And just to give you an idea, one large foundation just bought 200 books to give to Alzheimer's. At an event, everybody left, got a book. Another company just bought 200 books to give to Agewell here in Burlington. The Travis Roy Foundation bought 900 books to ship to all hospitals throughout the country. Our goal and our mission is to ask you to consider buying a book and giving it away. Give it to someone that is a caregiver. And if you're not, it doesn't mean you can't be. If someone can't afford a book, I'll give them one. It's no problem. But that's our mission, to sell these books and make a change. And I want to leave you with two stories, okay? And then I'd like to have questions and answers if that's okay. One story is about Sharon. One of the blessings, the name of the book is, again, The Greatest Burden, and Caregiving is a Burden. But one of the stories is about the blessings. What did I find? What was my blessing? Because there certainly was enough burdens. Sharon was the type of person that every person that laid next to her in a hospital room became her friend. Every person that she met, it was like a pot, no matter how sick she was. She had chronic diarrhea, chronic nausea, but she always had a smile on her face, always was positive. The day she died, that evening, I remember I fell asleep on a couch, and there was a doorbell rang and woke me up. It was quite early in the morning, and there was a woman that was at the door, and she said, "Is Sharon home?" And I said, "I don't know if you heard, but it looks like you haven't, that Sharon passed away yesterday." Well, she started crying, and I hugged her, and she hugged me. And she said, "Well, you don't remember me, but I was laying in a bed next to Sharon, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be here today." The blessings that she had and she gave were her helping other people. And I realized that my blessings were that we all strive to be financially successful, but that's not what's important in life. What's important is our health, our faith, our friends, and our family. And those are the blessings that I found from what we've written. And I find that when Sharon was, when she died, the night before she died, I remember I laying in bed and I fell asleep, and I jumped up quickly, and it was like a vision I had where, and I looked at the clock, and it was like 3:09. I'll never forget that time. And I ended up thinking about that, and I marked it down. I fell back asleep, and I said, "That's Sharon's going to die today at 3:09. Went to the hospital, and it became 3:09, and she was still alive, but I knew it wasn't going to last long. But I remembered something about Sharon. Sharon was the type of person who was never on time. Never. She would go shopping, and her love was to shop. And ended up where she'd say, "I'll be a half an hour." Of course, it'd be an hour. I try to get her to the hospital. "No, I'm going to be better." Never on time. I try to leave from Boston to get back to Barrie. Never on time. 5:30 she passed away, and I realized that she even kept God waiting. So she never was on time. But the other story I want to leave you with is about a rabbi. And his name was Rabbi Aaron. And Rabbi Aaron had the most wisdom of, they said he had the wisdom of Solomon. And he always was, people tried to fool him all the time, never could do it. But these two young boys decided they had an idea, a way to fool the rabbi. So what they did was, one young boy said to the other, "I'm going to get a bird, and I'm going to put the bird in my hand, in both hands. I'm going to go up to the rabbi and say, 'I have a bird in my hand. Is the bird alive or is the bird dead?' And if the rabbi says the bird is dead, I'll open my hands and the bird will fly away. If the rabbi says the bird's alive, I'll crush the bird to death." So both young men said, "We have a way to fool this rabbi." What they did was they went up to the rabbi's house, and he lived on a hill. And they walked up to him with a bird, and he was sitting on his porch. He used to smoke a corncob pipe. He was smoking it, and they went up to the rabbi, and he said, "Rabbi, I have a bird in my hand," the one with the bird. "And Rabbi, is the bird alive or is the bird dead?" And the rabbi took another puff out of his corncob pipe, looked in the boy's eyes and said, "Son, it's in your hands." Well, it's in your hands today whether or not you choose to help us in our mission. And like I said, it's in your hands today whether or not you choose to buy a book. It's not important whether you do or you don't. What's important that you help caregivers and caregivers to be in their journey. Thank you. Is there any?
Thank you very much.
Is there any questions?
Alan, before you start with questions, I just wanted to, we just mentioned one thing.
Sorry.
It's okay. Just want people to be aware that CCTV has generously been filming today's talk. So if there are folks that you know who weren't able to get here tonight, this afternoon, the talks will be available. Normally it's a week or two after the session that they're available on the CCTV Town Meeting TV website. So certainly keep that in mind. And got a mic if there are questions, and I'll pass that around.
Could be on boxing too, or sports. But I'd like to keep it to this.
So let me start off with a question. I'll have the prerogative of asking the first one. In reading your book, there are a number of stories where the people who are the caregivers are under a lot of stress in terms of juggling schedules and having sort of a life for themselves, you know, in addition to being the caregiver. So can you speak a little bit about how people effectively deal with that?
I think that's probably one of the most important questions. The stress is unreal. And one of the things that I did and is realize that I can't take care of Sharon unless I take care of myself. And I tried very, very hard to, it doesn't have to be what I did. I threw the javelin, I got involved with different things. I didn't have a lot of time, but what I did is found a way personally to keep myself sane, because I don't remember sleeping that much because I was up nights with her and I needed to get to find something to keep myself moving. To answer your question too, there's help out there. Most people aren't willing to ask for the help. There's a lot available. Unfortunately, a lot of it's fragmented, whether it's Age Well, and these are great organizations, Council on Aging, Home Health and Hospice. In fact, in the book, there's a couple of pages on where to go for certain things. There is email and websites that you can look at. But does that answer your question? That's a few things but there's so much that get rest, you need help, get your family involved, get your friends involved. It isn't always that easy because you do find who's really on your team when this happens.
Are there any questions, or also invite people if they want to tell a little bit about their own experiences as caregiver?
So I'm going to ask a question for you that's a little bit based on my own experience. So some people here know this, but my father has been ill for a long time, about 15 years, on and off. And my mother is his primary unpaid caregiver. And so one of the struggles I have as a person on the outside who's not always there, who is very frequently not there because I live on the other side of the country, and I wonder based on the people you've talked to and interviewed for this book, what are the things that people can do who are not in the position of being the caregiver, the people who are supporting the caregivers, friends, family, what are things that people have to ask or identified as the most helpful things that people can provide for them?
That's a great question. And first of all, communicate, just even a phone call to say, I just want to let you know that I'm there. Because that means so much. And there might be things you can't do, and I think as caregivers, tell them specifically what you want. Not, and they need your support. And a lot of times people don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. And that's the biggest thing, I think. And be there if you ask a direct question, what can I do to help? As a caregiver, be direct with them. Can you bring a meal over? Can you just, keep in touch with me? Is that helpful?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you have a question? Okay.
I did caregiving for 5 years. And my advice is to know when you can't go on and to have something there to help you, because you can't do it 24 hours a day. And if you don't have the support, you're going to need a caregiver.
Boy, is that true. There's a point where when Sharon died, I would have kept going, but I had really come to the point where I couldn't go anymore. I realized that, and I did go out and get support with home health and hospice. Thank God for the paid caregivers that are out there. Unfortunately, in today's world, it's a very, very tough situation because there's not enough of them. And it's very hard to get caregivers, whether it's aides or caregivers, or it's a tough situation. That's why more and more non-paid caregivers, the people that are trying to keep people at home, because it's a tough situation that's out there. But boy, ask for help, and because there is things there. And one of my goals right now, and Mark and Mike's goals, is to take the fragmentation out of it sounds like all these things are available, but people don't know where to go. You go on the internet, and it's like a big maze. And so we're trying to put some programs together and work with, whether it's Age Well or Home Health and Hospice or just different organizations.
Alan, what you have a website too?
Yeah.
What's the name of it?
Thank you. Please go to our website. It's called caregivingguys.com. caregivingguys.com. In fact, there's some brochures over there where you can just take a picture of our and you can go right to it.
Are there other questions or comments, Jeff? Hang on a second.
Since this is an OZ crowd, I suspect many of you aren't familiar with Alan, though he is in fact co-chair of the cemetery committee and has been instrumental in some remarkable work that's been done recently. So the question, Alan, which I never pose at our meetings because we're constantly too busy getting other business done, but is there a relationship between caregiving and the commitment that you've made to the OZ cemetery?
Absolutely. Sharon was buried there. And I looked around and said, someday I'm going to be here a long time. So I want to make sure that we have the best cemetery that we can have. And as this guy is amazing because he's helped me and helped the committee so much to move forward with it. If you haven't been over there, I suggest strongly you go over and see something that we have over there, that we're trying to make this where it's an asset to our Jewish community. And Shimmy does so much work. We're now putting together a good team of our committee, but it takes a community. And we need your help through fundraising. For that, we need your help through maybe one of you or two of you being involved with the cemetery, or talk to someone that can get to us and help us make this a place that OZ and our community can be proud of.
Are there other questions or comments that anyone
I
would?
think there was one more, I think someone had brought up. Yeah, go for it.
Hi there, I'm Vesna. I have been a caregiver for many years, maybe 25 and 30, from taking care of children to working in nursing homes to elderly care once I had a car. And I just want to mention how important it is to really care, not just work. I had, for example, one patient that was very disabled, but he was very smart and had a little motorbike. And one day, I remember I worked in Essex Junction, and I had a car then, and I'm very much afraid to drive in snow. It was about over a meter of snow, and I had a premonition, no matter what, I have to hurry, that something happened. And of course, I was right. The man was on the floor. He fell from his bike. And I tried to get him up. I hurt myself, but I saved his life. So this kind of thing, and I felt like so brave afterwards. That he actually lived quite a long life for his condition, and I was at his funeral. But it's amazing that we think they are disabled, but they are not, because the man was extremely smart. He was just born with that condition. He couldn't walk, he couldn't talk. So that's one of my stories, and I still help, but I'm now more like volunteer, but because I don't have a car now, and so I can't work. But one day, yeah, it was a very rewarding experience. So thank you. Thank you for helping us.
You know, I just want to mention one thing. See, you are the hero. The caregivers, the paid caregivers, the caregivers that are out there taking care of their loved ones. These are the real heroes in life, not the baseball players or the actors, but you're the heroes. And I just want to thank you for sharing with you. Okay.
Last call for questions.
I keep thinking about your question. Can everyone hear? Closer? Okay. All right. Your question about what do you do for the family member that has the lion's share of the work? I had a brother who was a year and a half younger than I was. He had brain damage from a brain tumor, and he was 4 when that happened. And I was never not sad about my brother most of my life. I remember him a little bit from before then. And I was 12 or 13 when my mother told me it was going to be my job to care for him when she couldn't. And that happened 6 years ago. My mother died. So here's this brother. I've always had trouble being close to him, and I'm always sad about him, and now he's I used to call him my child from a previous marriage. Not my marriage, but... And he finally died over the summer, after a summer that I spent, for the most part, sitting next to him in a hospice room. And I watched him die for 4 weeks while I didn't withheld nutrition, and he just kept getting too sick. My point is that when a caregiver doesn't say that they've had enough or too much, it might still be true that they've had enough or too much. And when they do say they've had enough and too much, and they say they're really losing their mind, and they have to go home to do housework for 2 days, which is an actual example from my life. They really have to go because it's really overdue. You have to believe them if they say it, because people will wait until they really can't go further before they ask for help, pretty typically. I don't know if I can speak for everyone, but so that's
Thank you
what I have.
so much. That is so true. And I guess I'd like to end this. One more? Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
Hang on, no. That's okay.
What is your experience with people that don't have family to be their unpaid caregiver?
People that don't have family, can you elaborate a little bit on it?
Yes. Do you find that there are many unpaid caregivers who are ending up helping friends or just people they know, as opposed to a helping family in their last days?
I just had a meeting with Agewell here in Colchester, and they're like what they actually did was they have a group that they look for people that can donate their time to help people that don't have family, and also people that have families, but they're focusing on that. Please, that's something that you can donate your time or donate, to help the people that need help. And when you find out about them through your own circle of influence, or the Age Well, or the Beata, or the what's out there, we really need the love and help from our community. And it's just doing, in today's world, I think it might not be caregiving, but find something to be, to make a difference. For me, it's been the caregiving. And I'm sure a lot of the people that are here have loved ones, and it's tough. I'm not going to tell you it's not. But here's the other part of the book. Let's find the blessings from the burdens. And that's what we're trying to do.
So want to again encourage folks to consider Alan's book and website. After I heard you speak at OZ once previously.
It's caregivingguys.com. Please look at us on there. And thank you so much. Anybody else before we get off here?
And well, you'll be available.
I'll be available. I'll be selling books over here. I'll be here. And I'm definitely going to have some of that great food that's
And
over
also
there.
want to thank CCTV again for filming. And as I mentioned, the segment should be available in a couple of weeks on their website for friends of yours who might be interested in hearing this talk. So thanks again, Alan.
Thank you all.